Good afternoon. My name is Amy Hanlon. I'm a graduate student from Morningside University. I also have an endorsement in Instructional Strategist 2, BDLD, for Behavior and Learning Disabilities at George Washington Elementary. And my presentation is on the effectiveness of Superflex Curriculum on student social skills. The question I asked was, what effect does the curriculum Superflex have on students' social skills? So I had to define what a social skill could be. So it was the interacting and communicating with others. So how they approach situations in the classroom with their peers, their teacher, the principal, the guidance counselor, and the associates. And this is an issue because currently in the classroom setting and in individual discussions, teachers and administrators are spending time redirecting behavior problems and not able to focus continuously on instruction. So they're losing a lot of their instruction time to dealing with behavior problems. The students that are on my roster have already been identified as needing intense interventions with a special education teacher. So the way I pulled participants into my research program was based on the students on my roster. Superflex is evidence-based curriculum, and it was introduced to George Washington last year, 2015-2016 school year, because up until this year, there was no behavior program at George Washington. They would take students with a behavior goal and they would place them throughout the level 1 and level 2 classrooms with teachers that didn't really have any training in dealing with behaviors. So I was brought to George Washington to start the behavior program, and there was Superflex curriculum already here. So Superflex in the curriculum is seen as a hero, but is the superhero part of your brain that the more we use it, the more we practice with it, the stronger it gets, and the more capable we as individuals become in recognizing situations that we might not react expectedly to or appropriately. And the 13 villains are the actual unexpected behaviors or our reactions to situations in the classroom, playground, cafeteria, or in the hallways. It's based on traits, characteristics, and vocabulary. One example is Glassman, who is a villain, and his issue is that he has a very explosive negative reaction to very small problems. There's a disclaimer for this curriculum. You have to make sure that you have students that understand that you're able to teach them, instruct them into the fact that they themselves are not a superhero going out and looking for bad behavior in others and telling them how to correct it. It is a way for an individual to understand that in certain situations they might not react expectedly or appropriately, and that there are strategies that they can use. The strategies are connected to the villain, so identifying the villains such as Glassman, what are some things, some strategies that a Glassman situation might need to react appropriately, and that might be something like taking 10 deep breaths before having an explosive negative reaction. My hypothesis was that as my students became more competent in the curriculum, that they would be able to take responsibility for behaviors, and the frequency of the unexpected behaviors or inappropriate behaviors would decrease. So some of the assessment tools that I used, a behavior tally. It listed all 13 villains and Superflex and the traits based on them, and I would tally each behavior I seen in a 30-minute observation once per week. I randomized it as much as possible. I didn't want the students, the teacher, or the associates in the room knowing when I was coming in. And that was a little skewed because I had classes at specific times. So if they knew what my schedule was, they knew that there were certain times where I could be popping in. Self-efficacy survey was used with the students so that they could decide what behaviors they had and what behaviors they didn't. They rated themselves on a scale of 1 to 5, and 1 was that's not me at all, or 5, that's something I do often. Another assessment tool I used was a vocabulary assessment and a character traits assessment. And the students filled those out at the beginning to see what they knew before we started instruction. During instruction, once they got through the instruction, they took it. And then for 2 weeks following, there was no instruction. At the end of that 2 weeks, they were given these 2 assessments again to see how it compared. My participants were J and P, and the results were that there was a significant difference once we had gotten through the curriculum. They started out with a median score of 25 and ended with treatment score of 46.5. They then went to a slight difference in scores, which was compared to the very beginning and the very end where there was no instruction. They started with a median score of 25, and then their post-treatment was a median score of 65. Flaws in the research: there was small study size, there were males. The buy-in. Buy-in is understanding that they have issues themselves that needed correcting, and they were given the tools based on the curriculum to be able to correct these issues that they were having. And then the assessment tools themselves, tallying for 30 minutes at a time, and having self-efficacy. I would have done it a lot differently. I think there should have been assessments built into the curriculum so that you would have a defining moment of whether they were getting it or not. Misconception of the superhero. You got to really be able to educate the participants to know that they are not seeking others' behavior. Lacking self-efficacy. My students didn't understand that they had anything wrong, that they were doing something wrong. And the adults were trained in a one-word redirect to get the kids thinking about them needing to change their behavior, or that they were starting to show a behavior, while their peers were not versed in that. So it was only effective if the adult was around and if they understood that they had the behavior. The study size was only 2 participants. They were 2 students pulled off my roster, and my students are all males, so I didn't have any females involved in this. For future research, I would love to see a large cross-section of elementary students, getting the parents involved, different assessment tools, and the time spent on the curriculum. 10 weeks teaching is not enough. The cross-section, I think, should be general and SPED. It should also be male and female students, and kindergarten through 5th grade. I'd like to see the different age groups and see how that would work out. Parent involvement was difficult. I'd like to see a group with parents that are involved and a group without parents involved to see how that would work out. Having classes for the parents/guardians and the staff, reinforcing the curriculum so everyone's on the same page, using the same vocabulary and character traits. And then keeping the parents involved might consist of something like giving them an incentive to a local restaurant, grocery store. The length of time on the curriculum, K through 4, I think 5th grade, then seeing results would be a good way of doing it. doing a 2-year span, kindergarten first, first, second, second, third, fourth, or fourth, fifth. See what age group might be more readily adaptable to it, and then across all school years at the same time. Thank you very much for watching my presentation.